Hey everybody, welcome back to Let's Talk. I'm your host John, and today here on the channel I got two new movie reviews for you guys. The first one being VHS Halloween and I Like Me, the John Candy story. Both of those were just released on streaming services. VHS Halloween was released on Shudder, while I Like Me, which had its Toronto International Film Festival debut, I believe on September 5th, just hit Prime Video. But we're going to start it off with VHS Halloween, the 8th installment in the VHS series, which I was not aware that there were 8 of those films already. I remember when the first couple came out, people were excited. One thing about anthology films, and VHS, it's an anthology film series, is you can bring in a bunch of different directors, a bunch of different young directors, a bunch of different horror directors from a bunch of different backgrounds, and let them make their own segment on this film and, follow a little bit of a theme. Now, the horror genre, I think, is the best genre for these types of anthology films. Sometimes they carry over to dramas like Kinds of Kindness last year, directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, but for the most part, we've had these forever. I mean, Creepshow 2 are very famous anthology horror films, but Trick or Treat is now a Halloween tradition for a lot of people, including myself. And then, of course, the VHS franchise want to get on the bandwagon with, Halloween. And this is kind of in the same vein of what the original Halloween film franchise was designed to be. They wanted to put out a new film every single year around the holiday of Halloween. John Carpenter and Deborah Hill, that was their original idea. But unfortunately, people were just hooked on Michael Myers. And when Halloween 3 Season of the Witch came out, which in my opinion is still the best Halloween film, when that came out, people were like, where the fuck is Michael? And they couldn't get on board, and they had to abandon that idea. And you know what? They went back to the well in 1988 with the return of Michael Myers. But the anthology horror films have continued on, and of course now we have this one, VHS Halloween. And I've never been the biggest found footage fan, but I've watched a few of these VHS films, and because they're so short each segment, even if you don't like one, it's going to be over pretty quick and you can move on to the next one. Every single segment in this one is revolving around, of course, the holiday of Halloween. And I believe there's 5 segments built in. There's also one segment that's kind of going through the entire film, and it's called Diet Phantasm, which it's like shot in that late 80s, early 90s camcorder look that you remember. It's not really in the best of shape. I've seen VHSs from, personal home videos that look like this, and it keeps flashing across the bottom, internal use only. And, they're giving these kids this soda, and of course the soda, unfortunately, has been haunted by poltergeists, and we're trying to figure out, why are they trying to figure this out? And we see this throughout the entire film. I love the way that one's shot. I love the humor in it. I love the actual doctor in it. He's a real asshole. I guess he's a psychiatrist. The guy running the whole thing, he's just a real asshole, and I love that. It's like kind of done throughout the entire thing before we get to like our main segments. And I actually believe that the segments themselves get better as they go along. So that's something that rarely happens. Usually you can pick like, oh, maybe the first one's the best, the third one's the best, but I actually think they continuously escalate until the next one is better than the last. So they really structured this, edited this together very, very well. All of them, for the most part, come from different eras, different times. The first one that we see is, I think it's called Coochie Coochie Coo, which is about these kids. They shouldn't be trick-or-treating anymore. That's a big theme through this. Older kids, you got to stop at some point, but these kids, they want to go trick-or-treating. They're trying to ruin other kids' Halloween. We really don't like these people. Then they go into this house, and they're like, oh my god, there's some kind of weird baby fetish going on. And then they can't get out of the house, and things get really out of hand in this one. Some really disgusting body horror. So this wasn't one of my favorites just because it kind of grossed me out. And it's the same thing with the second segment as well. Really grossed me out with the body horror. It was an enjoyable segment. This one's actually in Spanish, which was pretty cool. I like that they actually have multiple language throughout. Again, just letting directors do what they want to do. I really appreciate that, just having it all tie together. Then there's one, I think it's called Fun Size, and this one was really funny actually. And this one also had some of the most gross out stuff, but was very, very, very entertaining. I probably could actually had more of this because it was just a very entertaining subject. They go to this house. There's this candy. They don't know the names of this candy. It doesn't make sense. It just says take one. Another Halloween rule that people don't like to follow, including myself when I was a kid. You ran up to the bowl, you grabbed it. There's no one around. You dumped it all in your bag. I'm embarrassed to say that as an adult, I did that as a child, and when it happens every year in my house, I gotta go. When I was a kid, I did the same thing. But this guy and these people, they have rules. And the first thing, the kid opens the candy. They're kind of making a video about it. It looks like a little dick. And they're like, wow, this one, they're like, oh, candy looks like dicks. They're like, no, this one actually looks like a dick. And then, unfortunately, the kid grabs another one. And then he gets sucked down into the bowl. Should have listened and just had one. And then some of the craziest stuff that I'm not going to spoil happens in this segment. I was like, oh my God, they really went for it in that one. So that one was one of my favorites. And then there's one that's exploring, I think it's actually 1992 that it takes place, which is funny because that's the year I was born. But all these kids are just disappearing in this town, and I think it was 8 at this point, and they don't know what the hell is going on. And of course, it also takes place on Halloween night. We're getting some kind of weird feelings from this one store. I think it's called Kid Print, where like they make videos about these kids and everything. And I guess they kind of had stuff like this back in the 90s. I don't really remember. And my parents would never ever pay for something like this. We went to Sears Portrait Studio, got our pictures taken like once a year, and that was a big deal. And those pictures were in circulation for a very long time. Pick a holiday, because we weren't doing them all. Not in my household. But these parents, they want to do this for their kids. But of course, kids are dying. And I love the way that this segment was shot. Like I said, they keep getting better and better as they go along. This one's a lot less fun than the last one, but still done very well. And then it ends on what I think is the best segment in here. And I'm trying to decide, like, how much do I say, how much do I don't say. But it's basically about a father and a son, like, doing this haunted maze that they do in their community every single year that started in 1977. And the way you tie in the found footage into this is, of course, they want to shoot the first walkthrough. And the son feels like he's getting a little bit too old for this. He's starting to resent his dad, a little bit. Typical teenager stuff. But, of course, even people in the neighborhood are, like, really getting on the guy for, like, come on, you don't change things around. I'm like, what incredible production design that this guy does for people in the neighborhood. And you're complaining? I mean, my God, a lot of douchebags in this movie. Of course, when it comes to the horror genre, we want to make people seem like douches, so when they die off, you don't feel too bad for them. Like, the guy was an asshole anyway. I mean, who knows? He just could have been having a bad day, but, that's what we're supposed to do as the audience. Make it more palatable for the kills when they come along. But it's really just about this haunted maze, and something happens in this haunted maze that really sets things off. And this is another one I was like, I could have gone for a whole film of this with better acting and everything. This could be a great 90-minute film. But overall, I thought that VHS Halloween was definitely worth your time. Like I said, you can watch this on Shudder right now. Shudder is one of the better streaming services. My two favorite streaming services right now are actually Shudder and the Criterion Channel, because they're more focused. Obviously, Shudder is focusing on the horror genre, and the Criterion Channel is focusing more on those, like, those art house films, those auteur-directed films that might not necessarily be for everybody, but they really speak to me. Those are my two favorite streaming services right now. Obviously, we get the big ones that kind of mix and match with everything, HBO Max and Netflix, but I just feel like those got a lot more going on, and really they're trying to sell you something. Not that Criterion Channel and Shudder aren't trying to sell you something, but they feel like they're a little bit more fan-oriented, and a movie like this that you can't check out in theaters, watching it at home on a rainy Sunday night was an absolute blast. We put some chili on while we watched it, and we really enjoyed this. It was the perfect spooky season found footage film. Definitely my favorite in the VHS series, which, again, you guys know, not the world's biggest found footage fan. I probably wouldn't have even checked this out if Frank from Frank's Media and Reviews didn't push me to actually check it out. I'm glad he did. I thought it was very enjoyable overall. Some segments are better than others. Of course, it's an anthology horror film, but if I was going to give this one a score of 1 to 10, I'm going to give VHS Halloween a pretty damn solid 8 out of 10. And next up, we're going to talk about I Like Me, the John Candy story that was just released on Prime Video. It had its premiere at the Toronto International Film Festival on September 5th, I believe. John Candy himself, a very proud Canadian. One thing I even knew from when I was a kid, just all the football documentaries I watched, that he was a big football fan. He even bought the Canadian Argonauts when that came along. For most people who grew up in Canada, they're usually very big hockey fans. We don't really find as many football fans up there. And this one was directed by Colin Hanks, son of Tom Hanks, obviously. Colin Hanks, you've probably seen him in a bunch of stuff as well. Fargo Season 1 he was in. And he looks just like his father, Tom Hanks. Also himself, a very underrated actor, very unappreciated actor. But for somebody who lives in the shadow of Tom Hanks, you can understand why he might not reach that pedestal. But he always has seemed like a very down-to-earth, nice guy, just like his father Tom Hanks is. And then, of course, this movie itself, this documentary, is focusing on the life of John Candy. John Candy has always been one of my personal favorite people. I wouldn't say he was my favorite actor, because he only acted, I think, in 30 films, and even this documentary they bring up, he acted in a lot of bad movies. But when he was on, he was on. And of course, they bring up in here the films of John Hughes that he did, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and Uncle Buck. I mean, it's called I Like Me, which comes from one of my personal favorite monologues in film history. If you heard me and David, a.k.a. Shamrock Balls, talk about this last year, but Steve Martin just basically lights in the John Candy in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, like breaking down the kind of person he is. And John Candy, phenomenal underrated actor as well. Many people just saw him as like the funny fat man, which they bring up in here. The guy had just dramatic chops for days. And, you know, obviously he would use his own personal life for things, and that's why it's called I Like Me. It's because the character in this film, very similar to the human being of John Candy, just a very nice guy that people really liked, a people pleaser. And that's exactly kind of what Del Griffith is. Even though he's also the most annoying person on earth, he's still a very nice, genuine guy. So when Steve Martin rips into him, and then he hits him with that speech back, after you saw that emotion on his face, like really, you killed him. You tore him down, picked him back, then you tore him down again. Like, you really lit into him. And he's like, that's fine. You don't like me? I'm an easy target. I understand that. I could be annoying. I could be a cold hard cynic like you. My clients like me. My wife likes me. I like me. Like, I mean, it literally, in the score playing underneath, I will break down emotionally every single year. And then, you know, watching this movie, I didn't have dry eyes the entire time. Like, I was trying not to, like, break down crying because my wife was sitting next to me. But it's just, it's hearing the things and hearing people say nice things about John Candy is something that we just don't see anymore. Like, in the world we live in, it's just so negative, and negativity sells so much more. Even on YouTube, if I make a video where I'm like talking trash about a certain type of movie or about a 4K Blu-ray, that video will always do better than if I go put a video out where I praise something up and down. Like, people would rather hear bad news than good news. I mean, just look at the news itself. If it bleeds, it leads. It's just bad news sells, and it's really, really sad. And for me, I've just never been that kind of person. I've always just like, I like to see people doing nice things for other people. I like to do nice things for other people. I don't even think as a person, like, I've looked up to John Candy as like a good person, and he would just take shit from people. Like, there's one thing that they show in here, like, he's doing an interview, and, you know, the guy's like, if you know Big, then he's like, if you want to know a Big, then John Candy's the perfect guy from you. And he's like, yeah, I'm a big guy. I get it. Like, for me, if that was me on the other side of that, this guy makes that comment, and it's like, oh, you know Big, then of course John Candy's the guy for you. Now I'd be like, if you know Asshole, then this is the guy for you. Like, you know, you can't let people make those backhanded comments at you. You know, I get it. You're a really nice guy, but, you know, people take advantage of that, and that's kind of what they bring up in here a lot. And they have interviews with everybody: Catherine O'Hara, Bill Murray, Tom Hanks, of course. Obviously, I think his son will get an interview with him. But everybody that he's like known throughout his life, and none of them, Martin Short, have a bad thing to say about John Candy, other than to say that he was such a people pleaser. He would put other people before him. They're talking about his young childhood, and I knew most of this stuff, like his father dying on his 5th birthday from a massive heart attack at 35 years old, and then him spending like the rest of his life like feeling like he's on borrowed time because that's gonna be him. And then the most fucked up thing, it was him. He did die of a heart attack at a very young age, just like his father did. And how that was a burden on his life now becomes a burden on his own kid's life. And, of course, they have interviews with them as well. And it's just very hard to say, to keep your composure while you're watching this movie. Like, the entire time. It's almost 2 hours long. I mean, my eyes were literally wet, tears running down my cheeks. It made me so emotional. And, like, people like that, they only live to be 44 years old. And, you know, the world loses people like that, while assholes live to be like 88, 89 years old, just being monsters to people, while a person like this, a good-hearted person who would give everything, not only his money, but his time, like all the time they're talking about how he would just stand outside for 4 hours, like signing autographs for fans. He just didn't want to let people down. And that's something I could always relate to, and that's why I always kind of looked up to John Candy. You always want to be the friendly, nice person, and like, you don't want to put your shit on other people. I've always felt like that. You don't have to, you know, bring your burden to other people and make it their burden. Sometimes people like myself and like John Candy, you know, they'll take other people's burden and put it on them to just give them a good moment or a good day. And I always like that in a person. I wish more people were like that. And I just feel like as a society, we've really shifted away from that. But this is something that, you know, it's very sad. I'm not going to sit here and lie. We started off like with his funeral in 1994. And he died so tragically, so it's still going to start off very sad. But all the stories throughout, you know, they're going to make you laugh. You're going to feel inspired. It's just going to make you feel good about a good person. But I'm not going to sit here and say that your eyes will not be... I'm not going to sit here and say you won't cry, because I'm pretty sure if you have a heart in that chest, this one is going to hit you. And I definitely think it's worth it, because it's just a fantastic, well-made documentary. The score that's playing underneath a lot of these moments, obviously doing a little bit of manipulation as well. But most of it is just him talking. You got Macaulay Culkin talking about, you know, his experience with him on Uncle Buck and how guys don't really like to work with kid actors. Macaulay Culkin even says, I get that now at 46. I don't even really like to work with kid actors, but he treated us like we were part of like the team. He would act against me like, oh, I got to keep up with the 8-year-old, you know. just kind of putting on airs just to make everybody feel good. And I absolutely love that. That was something I really needed to see right now. And I did the double feature with VHS Halloween, you know, feeling good after that, eating chili, watching that with my wife. And it's like, all right, we got our horror fix. Now let's move on to this. And it just ended the night perfectly. So if you are going to do that double feature, I would definitely do VHS Halloween first, then do I Like Me. I think that's the way to go. You know, it's a little bit of a pick-me-up from the horror downer, but, you know, there's some people out there who'll be like, yeah, I'd rather get the crawling out of the way first, and then we'll go into the spooky season stuff, which I get. But either way, or definitely check out both of these films, but if I was going to give I Like Me a score of 1 to 10, yeah, this is getting a 10 out of 10. You know, obviously, it's a documentary, so maybe it doesn't fall in line with, like, some of the great films we've watched this year, like One Battle After Another, or Sinners, but this is still something that's going to make my personal top 5 of 2025 if I had to guess, just because it got me emotional, it worked perfectly, and it was something that I felt like I needed to see, and it's something I could recommend to you guys that I really think you should see, just to see and it's definitely something I can recommend to you guys. I hope you guys enjoy it. But anyway, that's going to do it here for me on another episode of Let's Talk. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you did, don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, share this video if you could. We also have channel memberships. So if you want to become a friend of the channel, a producer for the channel like John Doe Juggalo, Harvey Scott, and Ben Rondo, you can do that. Or you can even bump it up to the channel's director's tier, where you can have your own choice review each and every single month, like Frank did for this video right here. You can do that, and you can end up on this list like Frank from Frank's Media and Reviews, Uncle V, Kevin Kruger, Nicholas Head, and of course Stone Gasman. Or you can even bump it up to the channel bankroll members like Mr. Smelly Potato. But of course, guys, if you have no money to throw my way, I don't mind at all. I just hope you guys enjoyed the video. And if you did, get out in those streets, tell your friends about us, and then we'll be seeing you around.